You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. You always thought that you were weak, but babe, you're wrong. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Think that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine. You shouldn't doubt yourself, 'cause you're a work of art. You should know that you are perfect with those flaws. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Know that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine, shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Shine, go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine, shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine.
What if everything you thought you knew about running your wedding and event business was holding you back? Welcome to A Turn of Events, where we flip the script on how you build, grow, and scale your business. I'm Annette Naif, wedding and event producer strategist, international speaker, business coach, and founder and creative director of Naif Productions. With over 30 years in the industry, I built this podcast for wedding and event planners who are done playing small. If that's you, I created a community just for you. It's called Event Planner Society, and it's where driven, creative planners from around the world come together to network, get referrals, sharpen their mindset, and get free training from me. It's exclusive and it's free. So find us on Facebook group. We're on Facebook in a Facebook group called Event Planner Society. Drop me a note when you join, and I cannot wait to see you there. So I'm very excited about my next guest because we're going to talk about systems and things like that. And as wedding and event planners, you know that that's very, very important. So my next guest is Forrest Derr. He is a fractional COO, EOS Integrator, and founder of Derr Consulting. With more than 25 years as a second-in-command leader, he helps founders build better businesses through people, process, and structure. Known as the Fractionator, Forrest works with growing companies to reduce chaos, improve accountability, and help owners get their time back while building businesses that can scale. So I am excited here. And we're going to talk about the topic of this, which is really cool, is the corner office wasn't the goal. It was the warning sign. So I can't wait to hear all about that. Forrest, welcome.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I've been in the business world for about 30 years now, which dates me. We're not going to talk about when I graduated from high school.
Well, I've been doing this for 30 years, so
yeah,
probably the same age.
Probably the same. But what I figured out was that over time, I was working with a couple of different founders over about 25 years time frame. And I realized that my secret power, my secret niche was helping founders grow and scale their business. And that's where I made a decision to go ahead and move out on my own and build a fractional business where I can help more than one founder at a time. Right. So I helped one founder for 18 years. I helped another founder for about 8.5 years. And then I reached that inflection point where it's like, you know what? I think that corner office is not actually where I want to be.
Right, right. So as you mentioned, you had a corner office with a balcony overlooking downtown Fairhope, which is something you and I have talked about. Yeah. So that sounds like a definition of making it to me. I remember I worked my last corporate job. I had an office as well overlooking Times Square. It was quite cushy and I had my own driver and the whole 9 yards. But what made you walk away from that?
Well, part of it was that I hired a coach, which I highly recommend people do. I hired an executive coach to help me think through some things. And she really was able to unlock what I really like to do. And the corner office was nice. I wasn't working, a ton of hours. I was doing some traveling, no dress code. So I was shorts and flip flops and sandals. It was a very, technologically current company. And it was nice to go out on the balcony and sit and, watch the traffic go by or watch Mardi Gras parades during the season.
Right.
But I was not satisfied. I thought I was. I strived for the job to be, president of a company, which was my last title before I left. Right. And it just wasn't fulfilling me.
Yeah, I know the feeling. So I've had my business for 16 years, which is incredible to even think about because I just remember starting it. So it seems like yesterday. And I mean, I had made a lot of money. I had a driver, I had my own office, which is like, you feel like you've made it when you got your own office,
Yep.
And I just felt like I wasn't going to advance. I was stuck where I was. So I ended up going to college late in life. And I didn't start my business till I was 47 years old. So for people who are always scared about starting and I'm too old, I can't do it. That is not true. You can definitely do it because the time is going to pass anyway. And so I was a little scared, but I got a year severance package and I didn't look back and I just kept going. So I'm very happy that I did. I would never go back again, but I never felt like I was going to advance in my business, like where I wanted to be successfully. Success is different for everybody, but where I felt that I was going to never be. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to start my own business. And I didn't come from family that did that. Everyone worked a 9 to 5 or whatever it was. And there was, I didn't come from that. So it's crazy to think because when I was growing up, probably around the same time you were, there was no entrepreneur was like a very few people were entrepreneurs. Yeah. And now it feels like everybody is. So, it's kind of crazy. So that's really great. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I tell people I'm a reluctant entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You were probably a little reluctant too. I didn't start the business because I wanted to do all this great stuff. I started the business because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be able to find and help multiple people at a time. So.
Yeah. I think that's great. So most people spend their careers chasing a title like a president, right? I was the director of operations and I thought, I'm a director. This is amazing, right? And so you had it. What did the moment feel like when you realized it wasn't enough?
Yeah, it just really, I'd say everything came into crystallized clear view that I didn't like staying in a business for a long period of time. And the first 6, 9, 12 months of working in a business was where my sweet spot was. That's where I had the most fun, was in that initial phase of building the systems, building the structure, getting the founder to where they were out of the weeds. And that was what the unlock for me was, is that it wasn't that I liked maintaining a business. I liked building businesses.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because when I thought, okay, now I've been doing events again for over 30 years, but for companies that I worked for. The first 20 years was, for the companies that I worked for. And then I was also I had legal work that I was doing. So I knew contracts and things like that. And I learned how to negotiate, which was a big piece of what I do now in my business, which is amazing. But so when I first started my business, I put these business cards together. I still had the job, but I put the business cards together and I thought, okay, I'm going to manage businesses, because I was great at organizing people's lives. I was the director of operations. I was great at doing events. So I was going to do that. But everyone wanted me to do everyone that hired me outside of started hiring me wanted me to help them with their marketing. And I was like, okay, I'm good at marketing, but that's not what I want to do. When I finally realized, wait, I need to tell them I'm doing events. So you got to be very specific about what you want to do. But when my first initial thought was, I want to help businesses get organized, get themselves together. So it's funny that that's how it started out, but people just didn't get it. And of course, marketing's gone. Facebook wasn't even around when I started. So it had just started, I think. And I just started, talking about my business on Facebook, which people thought I was crazy. And now look at how it goes. Mm-hmm. So, so it's funny that we kind of had the same thing going there. So when you went from president, and then you went to a telecom company, a president of a telecom company, to a landscaping operation, right? Yeah. And people thought you were crazy, obviously. So what did you know that they didn't?
What I knew that they didn't is that was a stepping stone to get into the fractional space. And so the reason I took that job was, one, I liked the founder of the business. So he and I had been, having coffee and lunch together, and I'd been kind of giving him some insight and some advice on some different things. But as I learned more about his business, I understood that he also had a CrossFit gym and a jiu-jitsu gym. And the value for both of us was I could get out of what I was doing and I could step into multiple new industries. So CrossFit, jiu-jitsu, which are different industries, landscaping, totally different industries.
Yeah, totally.
And I was able to get into 3 different industries and work in them at the same time, 3 different businesses, but actually had the security of a W-2 job. So I was being paid out of the landscaping company as a W-2 employee, reduced my risk, but gave me the ability to work fractionally in multiple businesses with multiple teams to set myself up for the next step, which was going out on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking back across those 30 years and 15 plus industries, was there a moment where you realized you had been doing the same job the whole time, just under different roofs?
Yeah, it was with that executive coach. So it was at the end of my term at that telecom company. She was able to really help me think through what I was doing and what I liked to do and what I was good at. And then it was a light bulb moment for me where I just enjoy working with founder-led businesses. And I like working with founder-led businesses that are kind of messy and help them get that structure and organization together.
Yeah, because that really makes you feel great. They think you're like a genius and it just comes natural. So I understand that for sure. It's the same with events. Yeah. When we're so organized and like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. We always love to hear that. So you describe founders as thoroughbred racehorses, powerful, fast, and dangerous without direction. When did you first recognize you were the jockey, not the horse?
This was back in, it's a good question. Yeah. Back in 2019, when I found EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and the company I work for, we hired an EOS implementer to help us implement EOS and build the systems into the business. I learned about the integrator seat, which is what I do right now. And that integrator seat, people call us a COO more commonly in the marketplace, but integrator is the EOS term. As an integrator, you're that second in command. You're keeping that visionary in check, but you're also filtering all the different things that are going on. And unfortunately, founder-led businesses, the founders are like a thoroughbred racehorse. You put them out in the field like a stallion, and they're going to trample over everybody. They're going to keep running. They don't even realize they're doing it. They don't mean to do it. And it's just chaos. And then if you get a founder with a jockey, i.e. an integrator or a COO on their back, and keep them focused, put guardrails around them and keep them in their lane, they will run further and faster and not hurt anybody in the process.
Yeah, it is tough to stay in the lane because there's so much noise out there. I know I always, I coach wedding and event planners on how to start their own business or ones that are struggling. And, I'm always saying, just don't look at the noise, just stay focused on what the goal is and, getting visible and yourself. There are people who are going to be doing amazing things out there. That doesn't matter. There's also people who just start out, like I started somewhere as well. And so, you just have to like stay the lane and be focused. I love that analogy. And so you mentioned about coaches, and I want to touch on that for a minute because I myself am a coach. You're obviously a coach. I've had many coaches along the way, and I cannot recommend that enough. Every time I've spent money on a coach, even though I remember the first time I had a coach, it was a year long, but when I really was spending like $500 a month, because one time I first got my coach, I spent like $3,000 for the year, and it was a whole year. And I thought, okay, well, that I can manage that. But $5,000 a month felt like it was huge at the time, right? You're just getting, but every single time I've had a coach, it has advanced me in my business. Like always it may not have given me exactly what I thought I was going in to get coaching for, but I met so many wonder people along the way. I got other things out of it that were so big and guided me down another direction. But for the most part, they've all been so amazing. And I mean, I have a coach for many different things, my fitness, it's very important to have a coach. So I know there's many out there who are wanting to start their own business and thinking, oh my gosh, I can't spend the money, but you will save so much more money with a coach than if you tried to do it on your own, because, you obviously do. It can be costly if you don't know what you're doing. Right.
Yeah. And that was one podcast episode I was on. Somebody asked me if I could go back to my past self, like when I was 24, 25 years old, just getting out of college, what advice would I give myself? And I said, I would hire a coach. Yeah. Absolutely. I didn't hire a coach until I was 47, 48, somewhere around there. And that set me back because I didn't realize and recognize the value.
Yeah. And I always say, gosh, I wish I had started my business when I was in my 20s, but you don't know, you're ready when you're ready. And that's kind of the bottom line. And like I said, I started late in life. So that's great. You can be successful no matter when you start. So it's hard work. It's a lot of work. You got to put the work into it, but anything is worth it. And when you've got your own time and you don't have to, get up every morning and go into work with people you don't like and the bosses that you don't like. And those are never fun. I've had plenty of those. So, but it's great to be an entrepreneur when you, start to see it all coming together. So a lot of business owners listening are the ones whose phones never stop ringing. What is the phone ringing actually telling them about their business?
Well, if it's clients calling you, that's probably a good thing. So I want to clarify that because I've had some people push back on me. I want my phone to ring. Well, let's talk about what those phone calls are. Yeah. If those phone calls are employees asking you questions, asking you to make decisions, that's a red flag that there's something going on. What I typically see is founders who they were the whole business. In the landscaping world, they were chucking a truck. They were the guy that was the weed eater, mower, and driver. And then they added another person, and then they added another person. And wedding planners be the same way. You keep adding people. Yeah. But as the owner, you know how to do every job. And so it's very difficult for you to let go of things and let your people make decisions. And so part of the process that I take clients through is helping them delegate and helping them understand that they need to give their team members the authority to make decisions, the power to make decisions, and let them make decisions. And that will reduce the number of phone calls that they have.
Yeah. I mean, how do you work around? I delegate. I will give the whole farm away. I have no problems with that. I do watch what's going on. We have consistent meetings. We pay attention. Reports come in. But I can't do it. There's no way I can run my event business, run my coaching business. And then I also have another piece of my business that we're just starting up, which is site selection and contract negotiation. And it's now a third piece of the business. And it's a lot, but I have to have people in that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I can't babysit. So how do you work with somebody who is very resistant to that? Because there are many people who cannot do that.
Yeah. One of the things I talk them through is to make a list of the things that they do. And so go back for the last 2 weeks, write down, document, use Claude or whatever, make a list of things. Make a list of things that you do. And then let's start prioritizing that list and looking at not only do you like them and are you good at them? That's part of it. But then I cause them to have a math equation. So what is the salary that you're taking home as a founder? What's the draws you're taking out of the business? How about that car that the business is paying for? Let's do some math and figure out what are the costs for you to be in the business, not how much you're getting paid, but what are the costs for you in the business?
Yes.
Health insurance, et cetera. And then what's your effective hourly rate? And that usually is a light bulb where you're not doing $25 an hour work. You're doing work that somebody else should be doing because your effective cost to the company is $97.50 an hour. Well, if you're doing administrative tasks,
I'm going to tell you
at $97.50, you're stealing from the company. You're stealing from yourself. And so I had a guy that was a business owner. He probably doing about $8 million. He was changing the oil in his company vehicles on the weekends.
Isn't that crazy?
And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And through the conversation, I said, do you realize you are stealing from the company? And that was the light bulb. He was like, oh, I get it now. And so kind of turning the mirror around and saying, what are you costing the company? If you're doing stuff that's not as valuable as that, you're stealing.
For sure. Yeah. I try to take stuff off my plate I want to do things that are generating money. That's the thing that I need to focus on. Even though, and every year I take a look and say, okay, I have all these people that are working for me, and is it paying off? Do I need to look at my expenses? One of the things that I teach, I have a part of my coaching program. I have an online digital course, and in that, prior to that, I do a webinar, and in the webinar, I teach how to figure out what your hourly rate is going to be, needs to be, right? According to all of your costs, all the things that you have to pay out, and what should your hourly rate be? Because always I'm asked, the biggest questions I'm always asked is, how much do I charge, right? What should I be charging? And so you got to kind of figure out, well, how much do you need to make? And then you kind of go from there. But when I first started, because it's very tricky in the industry on how to price your services and all the different things you have to think about. And I was learning how to do that. And my first job, when I finally figured it out, I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to price out this first job that I did in my business, because I had a salary. I didn't know how to price, right? And so I priced it out, and I made a negative $57 an hour. It was a negative. That's why I laughed when you said you're 92. I would have been thrilled to make $9 basically. Right. But I mean, I was a negative, but now it's a great story to tell. So, but boy, and you don't forget that, you don't forget that, because everyone's going to start out, and you're going to hit some bumps along the way. And even now, as your business starts to build, there's things like, I'm like, oh geez, if you're working when you're doing it yourself, I can coach it. But then there's sometimes I'm like, okay, Annette, you coach this, you teach this, go back and do that. Right. Yeah. So it is true. And it's scary to look at your numbers. I remember, even now I'm like, oh geez, okay, I got to go reevaluate everything, but it's good to do that. And sometimes you have to listen. I don't care how long you've been in business. It's always going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be times when you're not getting all the money in that you thought you were going to get in, because that client's not getting paid and they're not getting, So, and that's kind of happening right now. I've got some clients who aren't paying me, which is very unusual, because they're waiting for some money to come in. And then so Yeah, you have to keep track of that. We have ways of making sure that that doesn't happen, and you're taken care of. But it does happen, and things happen, and you just got to pay attention to that. But it's important to pay attention to your numbers. That's very important. So you talk about freedom through structure, which sounds like a contradiction. How do you explain that to a founder who sees process as a cage?
Yeah, so many founders they like to be free spirits, going back to that thoroughbred analogy. They like to run and play and squirrel and chase things. And I call it dropping hand grenades. A lot of the founders like to walk around the office dropping hand grenades with new ideas. But helping them understand that structure actually provides freedom. Going to that list of things that they like to do, go through that and say, all right, here's the things you really like to do. Let's set up the structure where you can focus 100% on those things and not have to do the things you don't like to do.
Right.
So really helping them analyze their day. How many days a week do they want to work? How many hours a week do they want to work? And building the structure that supports that then entices them to accept the structure. Because once they understand the value of the freedom, it's hard for them not to accept the structure.
Yeah, I do like my freedom. I like to travel and stuff. Okay, so what was the turn of events, and no pun intended here, I guess we're called the turn of events, the specific moment or decision that made you stop being someone else's second in command and start building your own thing?
Yeah, the turn of events was working with that coach and making a list of the things that I really like to do and helping me understand my core values. And the core value that stuck to me was I like to help people, and I like to help founders specifically to get out of their own way. So many founders are stuck getting in their own way.
Yeah.
And if I look back at history of the experiences that I had, that was where the magic seemed to happen, when those founders got to that inflection point where they're like, I'm going to get out of my own way. I'm going to let somebody else run this business and somebody else build the structure. And I'm going to come in periodically when I need to check in, like you were talking about earlier. But I'm not going to micromanage. I don't have to oversee everything. So that unlock of realizing that that's where my superpower was.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to mention is, when I realized, so when I was hiring people and I was like, okay, I got to take things off my plate because I'm really busy and I can't do this all by myself. Obviously, I can't run my 20 events a year by myself. Was I found out that, because you had mentioned earlier about what people like to do, what you like and what you don't like to do. And I realized that not everyone is great at doing logistics for events. Not everyone is great on site at an event. They don't love it, or they're afraid of it, or they don't want to be around it. So I was hiring one person who was helping, and I would give her, okay, so we have these 5 events right now, and I just need you to help me do all the logistics for these events. And without just discussing it with me, she was very overwhelmed and wasn't doing a great job. And that wasn't her fault. It was because I didn't understand what her abilities were and put her in the right place. Yeah. And so I have event managers. I have like 7, 8 event managers that work with me, wedding and event managers now that work with me. And they, each one of them, some of them just do logistics, some of them do on-site only, and some do both. And I only give them a couple events to handle. You've got to understand who the person is that's working with you, and what their abilities are. They could be great, but they might be just great at one event, and that's okay. You got to be able to, you have to learn who can juggle what and who handles what better. And so that was something that I learned once I learned that, it changed everything for me as far as who I was hiring and who was working with me. And then, you can see what somebody's strengths, and then you add another event with them, and then they can manage a couple different events. But I learned that I can manage a lot, but not everybody can. So, which is why I run a event business. So I can do that, but not everybody can. So I think that's important to take a look at as well. Have you come across that?
All the time. So I talk about you got to make sure you have the right person. So the right person for your company, right culture fit, but also you got to make sure that they're in the right seat, the right place for them where they can excel, where their skill set shines. So.
Yeah, exactly. It was a big change in my business that helped a lot.
Yeah.
So you coach other integrators now. What is the most common thing holding a capable operator back from stepping into that second seat role with confidence?
I call it imposter syndrome. They just don't think they can do it.
Everyone gets it. I know.
Yeah. I use this term closet integrator. So I think there are lots of closet second in commands, and they've been doing the work, but never been recognized, maybe never even had the title.
Yeah.
I've seen executive assistants that are second in commands, and they just never recognized that that's what they were doing. And so part of the process.
Of them, by the way.
Yeah. It's
it's
just interesting that executive assistant position it has not gotten the respect that it needs over the years.
Yeah, they run everything. They're the point person. They are definitely.
Exactly. They can handle multiple things at one time, multiple angles. They're dealing with multiple people, multiple vendors, different stress levels. And so helping that closet integrator, as I call them, recognize what they've actually been doing all these years. That is typically an unlock to go, oh, wow, I really can do this. It sounds big on paper and it sounds like out of touch or out of reach that I can't get to it. But just helping those people recognize, kind of like my coach helped me, you're doing so much more, and there's so much more you could do if you just stepped out of your comfort zone and go out there and go after that position.
Yeah. I find that when I'm afraid of something, like it's the scariest thing for me, and I step into it, it's always turned out to be one of the best things I did.
Yep.
Right. If you're scared about something, you were probably going in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah. So I've learned that a lot, and you can probably hear that from a lot of entrepreneurs, that's definitely a sign, even though, and I push myself. When I first started this podcast 5 years ago, 6 years now, I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, I got to get on video, but I got to get on video. People need to see who I am and learn about what I do and trust me and all of that. And I love, like you, I love helping people. I love to teach. I like that more than anything. I love to teach, but I was so scared, and I used to get so nervous before I pressed that button. And it's because we would go live, but that didn't matter. I'm still gonna, it doesn't matter if and this is during COVID time. So everybody was on podcasts and everybody was on video and all of that. But now I love it because I love talking to people, and it's easy now. But that's the thing. That's the point is try something that scares you, and eventually it's going to be so easy. You're going to be like, I don't even know why I even bothered to be scared about that. But that's the point, right?
It's that leap of faith, that you got to do it. And once you do, it's kind of like jumping in the cold, deep end of a swimming pool. It's horrible. The fear of it is horrible. But then once you get in, it's like, oh, this is not that bad. Yeah,
I know. Exactly. I'm always yelling about how the temperature of our pool, because I'm not the one. I don't like the cold water. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. Yeah. Okay. So if a business owner is listening right now, which I'm sure there's a lot of them out there, and they're the one doing everything, the sales, the ops, the HR, finance, what is the one shift in thinking they need to make before anything else can change?
They've got to be willing to admit that they are part of the problem. That's one of the things that I see regularly is founders will bring me into a business, and it's kind of like a couple going to therapy, and they go to therapy expecting the therapist to say the other person's got the problem.
I know.
And they're like, I'm going here so that you'll tell my wife she's got the problem so you can fix it. And
buyers.
I have founders that bring me in. They're like, I need you to show all these people that they're the problem, and I'm telling them what to do, and they're not listening to me. And then it's like, nope, you're the problem. Right. So they've got to admit that they are part of the problem, if not 100% of the problem. And they've got to recognize that the only way to get better is they've got to change how they're doing things. If they are not willing to do that, that's part of my process. If you're not willing to change, you're going to waste a lot of money. I'm going to make a lot of money. You're going to waste a lot of money, and you're not going to be happy. So it's not going to be good.
Yeah. I never like anyone to come coach with me if they're not going to put 100% in, because I want them to be excited about this. It gets me excited, and I like them to learn. Most of them, I would say, 99.9% of people who are paying for my services are going to put 100% in. But
Right.
there are times when they're not doing the work when I send them off to do the work. That's the point. So yeah, that's tricky. But I want to talk a little bit before, because we're at the end here. Thank you so much. This has been so great. But I want to talk a little bit more about your services that you offer, so that people can understand exactly what it would look like to work with you.
Yeah. So my model is pretty simple. I work with 3 companies at a time, 1 day a week. So I work with a company on Monday, I work with a company on Tuesday, I work with a company on Wednesday. And my focus is to work myself out of a job, which is very anti what most people do.
Right.
Most consultants, their model is to continue to have a continuous engagement. It may be 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And I come in sitting on the same side of the table of the founder with no political ambitions, no secret agenda. My whole focus is to work myself out of a job, to build the systems and structure, and to find my replacement. And so I'm working with clients between 6, 9 months, maybe 12 months in those engagements. And the whole focus is to get myself out of there.
And what specifically are you doing? Like, what areas of the business are you touching?
Yeah, the companies that I work with are running on EOS, running on the entrepreneurial operating system. So they've either self-implemented or they have an implementer working with them, and they have yet to find that second in command. And so I am the person that comes in and scales the systems and structure, helps build out the accountability, make sure we have the right people doing the right things in the business so that we can free that founder up, and then find my replacement. And many times my replacement is that closet integrator that's inside the business that hasn't ever been recognized, that they're really doing a lot more, and the founder hasn't recognized what they're doing. Or it may be somebody externally that I will help them find, and or someone that they need me to vet for them, and bring that person in, coach them, and help them into that role.
Oh, great. I love that. I might need your services. I don't know. It's tricky, but okay. So thank you so much. This has been awesome. I have a little lightning round of questions here. If you don't mind, I'd love to shoot at you here. So who is someone who is inspiring you at the moment, and why?
Inspiring me at the moment, I would say Benjamin Hardy is, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's written several books. One was 10X is easier than 2X, which really helped me unlock some of the things that I'm doing. And there's another book that he wrote that's called Be Your Future Self Now, and to make decisions today based off who you want to be. So he's probably the big one that's influencing me right now.
That's a good one. I'm going to have to check out those books.
Yeah, check out both of those. They're really good.
Yeah, it sounds good. And that was Benjamin
Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I have ever received was to bet on myself. That was the best advice. I have undervalued in the past my abilities. I was at a company for 18 years. I thought, nobody's going to want me unless I go to the same industry. I was in the office furniture industry, and I was like, there's only other office furniture companies.
Right.
And when I finally took a bet on myself after some advice and left office furniture and went to telecom, that was one of the big leaps in my life that I was like, oh, I really do know stuff. I can do things outside of this one industry. So
right. And you can adapt it to other industries, which is great that you did that. So what's the favorite tool that you're using in your business right now?
Favorite tool I am using right now is leveraging Claude with CoWork. And
I have to learn CoWork. I got to learn it.
I'll tell you, I didn't understand it. And I've talked to a lot of people who said they understood it. And I paid for a coach. I paid for an AI coach to do a cohort with me and a couple other people. And he really helped me unlock CoWork is an intelligent intern that you tell what to do. You're not prompting it. You're telling it what to. It really helped me recognize that there's a lot of things that I'm doing that I have to do to get prepared for the next day or look at business or whatever.
Right.
And now I've got an agent that does that stuff for me and just sends me a report every morning.
That's amazing. I've got to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
We use AI a lot. But again, I'm using it and I'm talking to it, talking back and forth, kind of like flushing things out and writing things out and changing it. And like, it's helping me think in different ways, which is great. So I haven't advanced to the next step, but I think that that's probably going to be my next thing, is to try to get someone to, so I might have to grab your guy, and
I'll be happy to make an introduction. He's great. I mean, he really did.
I would love that introduction. That would be amazing. Okay. So my last question, what's one piece of advice you'd give to wedding and event planners who are just starting out?
Build a plan. And that sounds so simple, but people that I talk to, wedding planners, event planners, they have, maybe they downloaded a template off of the internet for Microsoft Word, and it's a 100-page business plan that they filled out, and they may look at it one time and never look at it again. Right. But simplify your business down to a 2-page business plan. Just a simple, what do you want to do in 10 years? What do you want to do in 3 years? What do you want to do in 1 year? What do you want to do in the next 90 days? What is that business going to look like? If they will just simplify down, it's amazing. If you just have a simple 2-page plan and look at it regularly, you may not get to your goal. You may have a really lofty goal, but you will get way further faster if you have something to measure against. Yeah,
I have something just like that in my coaching program. And honestly, your goal is going to change. So be prepared. It's always changing. All the things. I probably should go back and look at my first one, because I'm sure it's so different. It's so funny to look at. But lots of dreams. So dream big, because you never know what's going to happen. Well, Forrest, thank you so much. It has been so great talking to you. And I love talking about systems, because we as wedding event planners are all about systems, because we cannot run our business without it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite. Enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you. Wait, before we go, where can everybody find you? That's important.
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you look me up, Forrest Derr on LinkedIn, that's where I post most of my content. But I've also got a website called fractionatorhq.com that recently launched. And so you can find out more about what I do there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you again next week.